Walk into any Walmart, Costco, or Target, and you'll probably see an entire aisle packed with protein bars, claiming they're healthy, packed with protein, low in sugar, and perfect for building muscle. But here's the problem. Most people don't actually know what they're buying. A bar with 20 grams of protein might sound amazing until you realize it's loaded with artificial sweeteners that leave a weird aftertaste, or packed with ingredients that make it feel more like a candy bar than real food. On the other hand, some protein bars that barely get any attention are surprisingly well balanced and could easily become your go-to snack after a workout or during a busy day. So today, we're putting America's most popular protein bars to the test. Not based on flashy marketing, not based on which brand paid the most influencers, and definitely not based on personal bias. Every ranking in this video is based on the things that actually matter: protein quality, ingredient list, sugar content, calories, taste, texture, value for money, and who the bar is really made for. Because let's be honest, the best protein bar for a bodybuilder trying to bulk isn't necessarily the best choice for someone trying to lose weight or simply stay full between meals. That's why a single best protein bar doesn't exist. But there are definitely bars that deserve your money and others that don't deserve a spot in your shopping cart. Throughout this video, you'll probably disagree with some of my rankings, and honestly, that's part of the fun. Everyone has a favorite, and I'm curious to see yours. So after watching the full video, let me know in the comments which protein bar you think deserves S tier and which one is completely overrated. Also, don't skip to the end because one of America's best-selling protein bars ended up much lower than I expected, while another brand completely surprised me with its ingredients, taste, and overall value. By the time this video is over, you'll know exactly which protein bars are worth buying, which ones are just expensive candy bars wearing a fitness label, and which one truly earns the title of the best protein bar you can buy in America. Before we start ranking, here's how this works. Every protein bar will be placed into one of 5 tiers. S tier is reserved for products that combine high-quality protein, great taste, solid ingredients, and excellent value with almost no major drawbacks. A tier is for bars that are still fantastic but have 1 or 2 small compromises. B tier means they're good, but only for certain people or situations. C tier is where things start getting disappointing because the flaws outweigh the benefits. And D tier is simple: save your money. Let's kick things off with pure protein. If you've ever walked through Walmart or Costco, you've almost certainly seen these bars. At first glance, they look like an incredible deal. Around 20 grams of protein, relatively low sugar, and usually cheaper than many premium brands. From a macro perspective, pure protein does a lot of things right, especially if your main goal is simply hitting your daily protein target without spending a fortune. But once you take a closer look, you start noticing the compromises. The ingredient list is much more processed than some of the higher quality competitors. And while the texture isn't terrible, it definitely isn't something you'll crave. It's one of those bars you eat because it fits your nutrition plan, not because you're genuinely excited about it. If you're a college student, someone on a budget, or just looking for an affordable post-workout snack, pure protein makes a lot of sense. But if you're chasing the best overall eating experience, there are definitely better options ahead. For that reason, I'm placing pure protein in B tier. Next up is RXBAR, and this one immediately stands out because it's almost a complete opposite. Instead of a long ingredient list full of things you can't pronounce, RXBAR proudly tells you exactly what's inside. Egg whites for protein, dates for sweetness, nuts for healthy fats, and that's pretty much it. From a whole food perspective, it's one of the cleanest protein bars on the market, and that's exactly why so many health-conscious people love it. The downside is that it doesn't actually contain as much protein as some of the other bars we'll look at today, and the texture can be surprisingly dense and chewy. Some people absolutely love that natural feel, while others think it's like chewing flavored rubber. It also tends to be more expensive for the amount of protein you're getting. So if your priority is clean ingredients, RXBAR deserves a lot of respect. But if your goal is maximizing protein per dollar, it's harder to recommend over some of the competition. That earns RXBAR a solid B tier. Now, let's talk about one bars, because this is where things get interesting. These bars usually deliver around 20 grams of protein, keep sugar surprisingly low, and come in dessert-inspired flavors that honestly taste closer to a candy bar than a typical protein snack. If taste alone decided this ranking, one bars would be fighting for S tier. They're soft, satisfying, and incredibly easy to enjoy, especially when you're craving something sweet. But nutrition is about more than flavor. They rely heavily on sugar alcohols and artificial sweeteners, which can cause digestive discomfort for some people, especially if you eat them regularly or have a sensitive stomach. That doesn't automatically make them unhealthy, but it is something worth knowing before you fill your pantry with them. Overall, they strike an impressive balance between taste, protein, and convenience, and for most active people, they'll be a very enjoyable option. Because of that balance, one bars earned their place in A tier. Now we're getting into the brands that almost everyone in the fitness community has an opinion on, and the first one is probably the most recognizable protein bar in America. Quest Bar. If you've spent even a few months lifting weights, there's a good chance you've tried one. Quest became popular because it completely changed what people expected from a protein bar. Before Quest, most high-protein bars were basically candy bars with a little extra protein thrown in. Quest flipped that idea around by focusing on high protein, very low sugar, and fiber-rich ingredients that actually fit into a serious fitness lifestyle. On paper, it's easy to see why these bars became a staple for so many people. Most flavors provide around 20 grams of protein while keeping sugar incredibly low, making them a solid option whether you're cutting body fat, maintaining your weight, or simply trying to hit your daily protein goal. But nutrition labels only tell part of the story. The biggest complaint you'll hear about Quest bars has nothing to do with protein. It's the texture. Some flavors are surprisingly good, especially if you warm them up for a few seconds in the microwave. But others can feel dense, chewy, and a little dry. It's the kind of bar that rewards consistency more than first impressions. The more you eat them, the more they tend to grow on you. From a science perspective, Quest still deserves a lot of credit because it delivers exactly what it promises: high protein, controlled sugar, and macros that fit almost any fitness goal. While the ingredient list is definitely more processed than a whole food bar like RXBAR, the overall nutritional profile remains one of the strongest in this category. That's why Quest confidently earns an A tier. It's an excellent choice, but there's still another bar that manages to combine great nutrition with an even better eating experience. That brings us to Barebells, and honestly, this brand surprised me more than almost any other on this list. The first time you eat a Barebells bar, it's hard to believe you're eating something designed for fitness. The texture is soft, smooth, and almost identical to a premium chocolate bar, without feeling overly artificial. Most flavors deliver around 20 grams of protein while keeping added sugar surprisingly low, creating one of the best balances between taste and nutrition available today. This is one of the rare protein bars that doesn't feel like you're making a sacrifice for your diet. Instead, it feels like you're getting away with eating dessert while still supporting your fitness goals. Of course, it's not perfect. Barebells usually costs a little more than budget-friendly options, and like many modern protein bars, it still relies on sweeteners and processed ingredients to achieve that incredible flavor. But for the average gym goer, those trade-offs are relatively small compared to the overall experience. If someone asked me for a protein bar that tastes amazing while still delivering strong macros, Barebells would be one of the first names I'd mention. For that reason, it becomes our first S-tier product. This is exactly what a premium protein bar should feel like. Next is Built Bar, and this one is probably the most unique product we'll rank today because it doesn't resemble a traditional protein bar at all. Instead of the dense, cookie-like texture that most brands use, Built Bars are soft, fluffy, and almost marshmallow-like on the inside before being coated in chocolate. Some people absolutely love that difference because it feels lighter and easier to eat, while others never really get used to it. Nutritionally, Built Bars perform very well. They usually contain around 17 to 18 grams of protein with relatively low calories, making them especially attractive for people trying to lose body fat without giving up sweet snacks. The downside is that they don't always leave you feeling as full as thicker protein bars, And depending on the flavor, the texture can be a little too soft for people who prefer something more substantial. They're also not quite as widely available in physical stores, which makes them slightly less convenient than brands you can grab during a normal grocery run. Even so, when you combine the protein content, calorie efficiency, and genuinely enjoyable taste, Built Bar is an easy recommendation for most people. It doesn't quite reach the consistency needed for S tier, but it's absolutely strong enough to earn a comfortable A tier placement. At this point, we've already seen one clear trend. The best protein bars aren't necessarily the ones with the highest protein. They're the ones that balance nutrition, taste, value, and consistency. Now we'll rank Kind Protein, Robert Irvine's FITCRUNCH, and METRX, and one of them is far more misleading than its marketing suggests. So far, we've looked at bars that are designed primarily for fitness enthusiasts, but now it's time to talk about a few brands that blur the line between everyday snack and performance nutrition. First up is Kind Protein, and if you've ever grabbed the snack while checking out at Target, CVS, or an airport convenience store, you've probably seen these bars. At first glance, they look incredibly healthy. You can actually see the almonds, peanuts, and other whole ingredients packed inside, which immediately gives them a more natural appearance than many heavily processed protein bars. And to be fair, Kind deserves credit for that. The ingredient list feels much closer to real food, and the crunchy texture is a refreshing change from the chewy consistency that dominates this category. But here's where expectations and realities start to separate. Despite having protein right on the label, most Kind protein bars only provide around 12 grams of protein. That's not bad for a snack, but it's noticeably lower than the 20 grams you'll find in bars like Quest, Barebells, or One. They also tend to contain more calories from nuts and healthy fats, which isn't necessarily a negative thing, but it does mean you're getting fewer grams of protein for every calorie you eat. If your goal is simply having a healthier afternoon snack that keeps you satisfied, Kind Protein does a respectable job. But if you're buying it specifically as a post-workout recovery snack or trying to maximize muscle growth, there are much stronger options available. That's why Kind Protein lands comfortably in B tier. It's a good snack, but only an average protein bar. Now let's talk about FITCRUNCH, created by legendary bodybuilder Robert Irvine. This bar has developed a loyal fan base for one simple reason. It tastes unbelievably good. In fact, if someone handed you a FITCRUNCH bar without the wrapper, you might honestly think you're eating a premium candy bar. The layers of chocolate, creamy filling, and crispy texture make it one of the most enjoyable protein bars on the market. And surprisingly, it still delivers around 16 to 18 grams of protein depending on the flavor. That's impressive considering how indulgent it feels. But this is exactly where you have to be careful, because taste isn't the only thing that matters. Compared to some of the leaner options we've already ranked, FITCRUNCH usually contains more fat, more calories, and in some flavors, noticeably more sugar. That doesn't automatically make it a bad product. In fact, for someone trying to gain muscle, increase calories, or simply replace a dessert with something that offers meaningful protein, FITCRUNCH can actually be a smart choice. The problem is that many people assume every protein bar serves the same purpose, and that's simply not true. If you're in a calorie deficit trying to lose body fat, those extra calories can add up much faster than you realize. So while FITCRUNCH absolutely wins points for taste and satisfaction, its nutritional profile isn't quite as balanced as the leaders on this list. For that reason, I'm placing FITCRUNCH in A tier. It's one of the best tasting bars you can buy, but it's slightly more of a treat than a true performance-focused protein bar. Finally, we have METRX, a name that's been around in the sports nutrition world for decades. Unlike many of the modern bars we've discussed, METRX was designed with one primary audience in mind: people who need a lot of calories and a lot of protein. Some versions contain over 30 grams of protein, making them one of the highest protein bars on the market. At first, that sounds incredible, and if you're a hard gainer struggling to eat enough throughout the day, it can genuinely be useful. But here's the trade-off. Those extra grams of protein come with a significant increase in calories, carbohydrates, and overall size. These bars feel less like a snack and more like an actual meal replacement. For someone trying to lean down, that's usually more nutrition than they need in a single sitting. The texture is also much denser than most modern bars, and while it's filling, it isn't nearly as enjoyable to eat as Barebells or FITCRUNCH. MedRx isn't outdated, it simply serves a different purpose. If you're bulking, traveling, or replacing an entire meal, it performs well. But for the average gym goer looking for a convenient, everyday protein bar, there are more balanced choices. Because of that, MedRx earns a solid B tier. Now we're entering the part of the list where marketing can become a little misleading. Some of these bars are advertised as high-performance nutrition, while others are designed more for convenience than serious fitness. The first one is Clif Builders Protein Bar, and if you've ever been inside REI, Target, or even a regular grocery store, you've probably noticed these sitting right next to the original Clif bars. Unlike the classic Clif Bar that's built for endurance athletes and loaded with carbohydrates, the Builders version is specifically designed to provide more protein, usually around 20 grams per bar. On paper, that's exactly what most gym goers are looking for. It also has a soft texture and rich chocolate flavor that makes it genuinely enjoyable to eat. But here's the catch. Along with that protein comes a fairly high calorie count and a noticeable amount of added sugar compared to some of the leaner options we've already ranked. If you're someone training for long runs, cycling events, or intense endurance workouts, those extra carbohydrates can actually be beneficial because your body needs quick energy. But if your goal is losing body fat or simply getting more protein without consuming unnecessary calories, there are cleaner options available. That doesn't make Clif Builders a bad product. It simply means you need to match the product to your goal. Too many people assume every protein bar serves the same purpose, when in reality, they're designed for completely different lifestyles. For athletes burning thousands of calories every day, Clif Builders makes a lot of sense. For the average office worker trying to eat healthier, it probably isn't the smartest everyday choice. Because of that, I'm placing Clif Builders in B tier. It's a strong performer in the right situation, but not versatile enough to rank higher. Next up is the Gatorade Protein Bar, and this one surprises a lot of people because it's much bigger than most protein bars. In fact, the first time you pick one up, it almost feels like you're holding a dessert instead of a fitness snack. That's because Gatorade designed this bar primarily for athletes recovering after long, demanding workouts, where replenishing carbohydrates is just as important as replacing protein. Most versions contain around 20 grams of protein, which is solid, but they also come with a significant amount of carbohydrates and calories. If you're finishing a 2-hour football practice, a marathon training session, or an intense basketball game, that combination can actually support recovery very well. But here's where marketing can confuse everyday consumers. Someone doing a quick 45-minute workout at the gym probably doesn't need that much energy afterward. For them, a lighter protein bar would accomplish the same goal with fewer calories. Taste-wise, Gatorade deserves plenty of credit because these bars are soft, satisfying, and much easier to enjoy than many older protein bars that felt dry and chalky. Still, because they're designed for a very specific purpose rather than general fitness, I can't justify putting them alongside the most balanced options on this list. That earns the Gatorade Protein Bar another B-tier placement. Finally, let's talk about FITCRUNCH. And this is probably one of the most unique protein bars you'll ever try. Instead of copying the dense cookie-like texture used by almost every other brand, FITCRUNCH feels more like a layered wafer cookie covered in chocolate. The first bite is incredibly light and crispy, which immediately separates it from the competition. From a taste perspective, it's honestly one of the easiest protein bars to enjoy, especially if you're someone who dislikes the chewy texture of bars like Quest or RXBAR. But once you look beyond the flavor, you start noticing a few compromises. Most FITCRUNCH bars provide around 13 grams of protein, which is respectable, but significantly lower than many of the leaders in this ranking. They're also relatively small, meaning they don't keep you full for very long. If you're expecting a satisfying meal replacement or a substantial post-workout snack, you may find yourself hungry again much sooner than expected. On the other hand, if your goal is simply replacing a candy bar with something that offers better nutrition and a decent amount of protein, FITCRUNCH does an excellent job. It's one of those products that's incredibly enjoyable without pretending to be something it isn't. Because of its outstanding taste but slightly weaker nutritional profile, I'm placing FITCRUNCH in B tier. It's a great snack, but not one of the strongest overall protein bars for serious fitness goals. All right. After comparing all of these bars side by side, looking beyond the marketing, checking the nutrition labels, thinking about taste, ingredients, value, and who each product is actually designed for, it's time for the final results. Starting in D tier, we actually didn't have a single protein bar that was so bad I'd tell you to never buy it. The truth is, most major brands today have improved a lot over the last decade. C tier also stays empty because while some bars have noticeable flaws, they still offer enough nutritional value to justify buying them in the right situation. B tier is where we have Pure Protein, RXBAR, Kind Protein, MetRx, Clif Builders, Gatorade Protein Bar, and FITCRUNCH. These aren't bad products at all. In fact, many of them are excellent for specific people. The problem is that each one asks you to compromise somewhere. Maybe it's lower protein, maybe it's higher sugar, maybe it's too many calories, or maybe the texture simply isn't for everyone. Moving up to A tier, we have One Bar, Quest Bar, Built Bar, and FitCrunch. These are protein bars I'd happily recommend to most people because they deliver strong nutrition while still being genuinely enjoyable to eat. If any of these are already your favorite, you're making a solid choice. But now we reach the highest level, S tier, the bars that truly stand above the competition. And after considering everything, only one product earned that spot today, Barebells. Now, before the comments explode, let me explain why. Barebells isn't the highest in protein. It isn't made with the shortest ingredient list. It isn't the cheapest option either. But what it does better than almost every competitor is balance. It delivers around 20 grams of protein, keeps sugar relatively low, has a texture that feels closer to a premium chocolate bar than a traditional protein snack, and manages to do all of that without making you feel like you're forcing yourself to eat healthy food. That's an incredibly difficult combination to achieve. If someone walked up to me and said, I only want to buy one box of protein bars this month, which one gives me the best overall experience? Barebells would be my answer almost every time. But here's the most important thing I want you to remember after watching this video. The best protein bar isn't always the best protein bar for you. If you're trying to save money, pure protein might actually be the smartest purchase. If you care more about whole food ingredients than maximizing protein, RXBAR could easily be your winner. If you're bulking and need extra calories, MetRx or FitCrunch might fit your goals better. And if taste is your number one priority, there's a very good chance you'll agree that Barebells deserves all the hype it gets. Context matters far more than internet rankings, and that's exactly why I wanted this video to go beyond simply saying one product is good and another is bad. As Prime Fit Mode grows, that's exactly what this channel is going to be about. Cutting through marketing, looking at the actual science, and helping you make smarter fitness decisions without wasting money on products that don't deserve it. There are hundreds of supplements, snacks, drinks, and fitness products competing for your attention, and not all of them are worth buying. So if you enjoyed this ranking and want to see more honest, science-based comparisons, let me know which product category I should rank next. Should we take on protein powders, creatine, pre-workouts, energy drinks, Greek yogurt, or maybe even every popular fast food chicken sandwich? Whatever gets the most support in the comments might become the next video. And if your favorite protein bar ended up in a different tier than you expected, don't just tell me I'm wrong, tell me why. I genuinely love to hear your reasoning, because the best discussions happen when people bring their own experience to the table. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next ranking.